Section 15 of Ads and Sales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by T.R. Love of Pleasant Hill, California. Ads and Sales, a study of advertising and selling from the standpoint of the new principles of scientific management, by Herbert Newton Casson. Section 14, Public Opinion. Chapter 11, Public Opinion. When public opinion is friendly, a corporation travels on an easy downgrade toward success. When it is indifferent, it travels on a level road, neither helped nor hindered. And when it is hostile, it travels uphill, with great waste of power and many accidents. There you have in a paragraph the correct theory as to the relation between the corporation and public opinion. There are several corporations, Standard Oil and American Tobacco, for instance, that had a different theory. They came to believe that public opinion was the mere blowing of the wind among the leaves, and they ignored it. Result? The road that they traveled became so steep and rocky that they had to stop and break up their load into little pieces. However it may be in other countries, we have learned in the United States, at great cost to our prosperity, that no corporation can survive the hostility of the public. No matter if a corporation deals fairly with its employees, no matter if it makes honest goods, no matter if it sells at a low price, no matter if it has opened up the markets of the world to American goods, no matter if it has enriched this country with millions of foreign gold and hundreds of millions. All this, as we have seen, counts for nothing. If the average man and woman and newspaper and magazine don't like that corporation, down it goes, as though it were a nuisance and a crime. The first duty of a corporation is to secure the goodwill of the public. If this is not done, nothing else can be done properly or efficiently. Before an article is offered for sale, before any sales campaign is begun, these questions must be definitely answered. 1. What does the public think and feel concerning this company? 2. Are there any old grudges? 3. Are there any wrong impressions on the mind of the public? 4. What is being said about this company by its enemies and its competitors? These questions cannot be answered by the officials of the company. They cannot be answered by the directors, nor by any old-time employee of the company. They can only be answered by someone who has the outside point of view. The man who ought to have the courage and the information to answer them is the advertising manager. It is he who speaks to the public, and it is he who ought to keep in touch with public opinion. Such is the armor of self-conceit that few people are ever conscious of being disliked by the public. Most are buttressed about by their friends, their families, their employees. They may even flatter themselves that they are attacked because they are great, because they are shining marks. They regard ill will complacently, as the tribute that envy pays to fame. A corporation may be hated so violently that its name has become an epithet to blaspheme with, yet its officials may be smugly ambling along to an inevitable smash-up, wholly unconscious of danger. Sometimes this hatred is well-founded, and sometimes it is based upon a medley of slanders and stupidities thrown together by the competitors of the company. But no matter what the truth may be, the very first purpose of an American corporation must be to live on good terms with the American public. The next point to consider in planning a sales campaign is this: what part of the public do you wish to reach? Very few articles can be offered to everybody. If the article is for men only or for women only, the public is cut in two. If it is a luxury, there are fully 25 million people who cannot afford it. For most articles, our general public of 90 million whittles down to a buying public of perhaps 5 million families. Half the public are always women, and at least 3/4 of the buying public are women. How few sales managers realize this. According to an investigation recently made by the University of Wisconsin, $9,000 million was spent by women last year for food, shelter, and clothing. Also, there are 9 million Negroes. 10% of the American public is black. There are 60 million people who live outside of towns and cities. There are 2 million house servants and 3 million people who live by mining and 5 million people who live by iron and steel. There are 2 million Jews in the composition of the American public, 3 million Scandinavians, 3 million Canadians, and 12 million who are either German or of German descent. All these must be kept in mind when a corporation speaks to the public through the pages of a national magazine. Then, when you are sure that you have conciliated the public, and when you have picked out your possible customers, you are confronted with the third problem, which very few corporations ever successfully solve: the problem of making these people interested in you and in the goods that you have to sell. Have you ever stopped to think how few advertisements you can remember? If, therefore, you cannot remember the advertisements of other people, how can you expect them to remember yours? The fact is that the public is absorbed in its own affairs. Every man has troubles of his own. The peddler with a basket is hoping to have a push cart. The push cart man is hoping to have a little store. The storekeeper is hoping to have a clerk. And so it goes, up to the President of the United States, who is hoping to have a second term. The public cares little or nothing for you or your goods. 10 to 1, it has never had one serious thought about you. It has no reason to believe that you are really trying to render it a service. It has been fooled 10,000 times. It is suspicious and indifferent and busy. Whoever would make the public pay attention must talk the language of the public. He must talk from the public's point of view. If he can do no more than roar his own praises through a megaphone, then the public will regard him as nothing but a noise. No matter if he takes full pages or double pages to tell what a grand man he is. If he can only talk about himself, he is soon set down as a common bore, and sometimes as a nuisance. Cater, cater, cater. That is the secret of success. No corporation can do what it likes or how it likes. No matter how sublime and majestic it may feel, it must be sociable and polite. The bigger it is, the more good manners it must have. It must defer and beg pardon and smile. Carnegie, who was the greatest of salesmen, learned this fact early in his career. That is why he is the only man in the world who has 300 millions and popularity. He catered to his customers even in the smallest details. For instance, when he wanted to capture the trade of Japan, he picked out one of his handsomest salesmen. He had this salesman placed on the staff of the governor of Pennsylvania with the rank of colonel. This move gave the salesman a right to a title and a uniform, and he went out to Japan in a blaze of military glory. Result: the steel rails for the Japanese railways were made in Pittsburgh. Why have the Germans captured a large share of foreign trade from Great Britain? Because the Germans have learned to cater. The British had been selling needles to the Brazilians, wrapped in black paper. The German needlemakers looked into the matter, found out that the Brazilians have a strong dislike of black paper or black cloth. They put up needles in bright red paper and at once got the trade of 3 million Brazilian homes. That was catering. A German shoe manufacturer heard that the people of Trinidad have broad, flat feet, so that no British shoes could be worn with comfort. He sent an expert to take measurements, made a special Trinidad shoe, and became the official shoemaker of the island. That was catering. Another wide-awake German who made cotton goods found out that several million British handkerchiefs, red handkerchiefs, were being sold every year to the women of Russia. Also, he found out that the Russian women preferred square handkerchiefs, and that the British factories persisted in making them oblong. Happy thought! He made several tons of square handkerchiefs and easily swept aside his British competitors. That was catering. Give the people what they want, and they will pay well for it. That is a rule that works in all manner of trades and professions. The selling price of an article is not decided by its manufacturing cost, as most manufacturers believe. It is decided by public opinion. Suppose a man made an automobile out of concrete. Suppose it cost him $50, and he offered it for sale at $51. Nobody would buy it, because nobody wants a concrete automobile. There are some articles, such as aeroplanes, which are being sold today at an absurdly high price because of the interest of the public. And there are others, a great many others, that are being sold at absurdly cheap prices because the public has never paid any attention to them. A little Gillette razor is sold for the same price as 360 pounds of steel rail. A high-grade Victrola costs the price of 40 barrels of flour. One typewriter would swap for a whole wagon load of tinware. One fluffy hat in the millinery store will easily bring more money than 50 pairs of socks. It is a curious but universal fact in human nature that the same man who readily pays $1,000 for a surgical operation, $2,000 for an automobile, $3,000 for a diamond brooch, and $5,000 for a little help from his lawyer, will at the same time strongly object if he is asked to pay 10 cents a pound for sugar or 2 cents a pound for potatoes. The public, in fact, is very much like the soil. If you neglect it, you will get poor crops. But if you pay attention to what it needs, if you fertilize it with courtesy and fair play, you will get paid for your trouble 100-fold. See what has been done by scientific agriculture. On a single acre in South Carolina, one man has grown 220 bushels of corn. On another acre in Wyoming, 1,000 bushels of potatoes have been dug. The great desert is being made to produce record-breaking crops. The very nature of trees and shrubs is being transformed by the witchery of Burbankism. Bees have been persuaded to make twice as much honey by being supplied with ready-made combs. 10 blades of grass are being grown where one grew before, and the age-long dreams of farmers are coming true by the use of scientific methods of agriculture. All these miracles will be duplicated someday by scientific public culture. We will have a new sort of scientist, salesmen and advertising men, who will be able to influence the public mind, just as a chemist influences the compounds of his laboratory, or as a new farmer influences the soil of his farm. These men will know the mass of the people and be known by them. They will be respected and trusted. They will be called upon to shape legislation and to suggest treaties and reciprocities. They will be employed to help the presidents of universities as well as the managers of corporations. They may even go so far as to reconstruct our whole system of education so as to base it upon a study of the human race itself. These architects of salesmanship will create new standards of commercial conduct. They will abolish the mere talk and trickery of advertising and develop the selling of goods into a profession as highly honored as that of law. They will teach states and countries to advertise, and they will create advertisements that will be as important as the brief of a great lawyer or the report of a federal commission. They will be publicists of a new species, too busy for public office and too responsible for the play-acting of politics. All this may seem, to people of low ideals, a voyage in dreamland, but it is not. It is the forecasting of what is certain to take place, of what is now beginning to take place. I am stating what I know to be true when I say that there are salesmen and advertising men now at work who are consciously building up their profession on the broadest and highest lines, and who have already learned to use, in a very practical way, the methods of science and the facts of sociology. End of section 14.